So we've already kind of built out that sort of lineup. The hunt. Did I do it? Do I need to be beeped?
The Kareem Hunt.
Just sitting here misspeaking?
It makes sense. Kareem Hunt, you put it together.
Yeah, the Kareem Hunt Cook lineup is
Mayo experience.
Mayo experience. Mayo experience. Mayo experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by Underdog, the Week 11 DraftKings Picks. We're building lineups, looking at the optimal, and building shells game by game. So hit the description if you want to figure out which game you enjoy, or at least you want to hear about. Code Mayo at Underdog, by the way, will get you a deposit bonus of up to $1,000 and a free pick as well for Sunday, for Monday, hell, for Saturday if you want to play some NBA. Get in on all the action at Underdog with Code Mayo. Tambo in the studio with me. People seem to like the game by games.
One guy didn't.
Well, fuck that guy.
Yeah, the rest loved it. I loved it myself. I thought it was a good way. It gave us some more ideas versus when sometimes we were just going back and looking up like, oh, who do we throw in next? Well, now we'll have an idea of who we're actually throwing in. So I like the format.
The best suggestion I got for this entire thing is that we should start with the optimal still to see what the projections are telling us are the value plays and see where we can work off that. So that's what I want to start with right now before we start building out shells game to game. The optimal lineup per runthesims.com on a Friday morning. And I think this might get adjusted a little bit because I think that Amari Cooper is going to play this week. So I doubt Curtis Samuel would make the optimal because of that. But it's Geno at quarterback with A-Chain and Alvin Kamara as the two running backs. Jacoby Myers, Curtis Samuel, and Cedric Tillman as the receivers. Hunter Henry at 3,900 against the Rams for the Patriots at tight end. McCaffrey as the flex, and then Bears DST at $2,400, which I'm going to guess is probably going to be the popular defense this week, only because it looks like it's somewhat of a bad weather game. The line has been shrunk throughout the course of the week from 6 down to 5. And a low total, and you get to play against Jordan Love. Jordan Love might light you up for 5 touchdowns. He might throw 3 picks too. And I think that at $2,400, you said that coming into the week that the want is to pay up for all of these running backs, which even the optimal wants you to pay up for all of the good running backs. That this is you're out amongst all these cheap defenses.
Yeah, that's going to be the case here. And if it's not, we'll find out how it changes up, like you said, with Amari and everything, all that. But for the most part, this is what I'm seeing, and that's the 3 running backs that a lot of lineups are going to start with this week.
Do you think that there's a very clear pivot off this immediately? Like if you were to take this lineup right now, like this spits out the optimal. Some people like to generate an optimal lineup or generate 10 optimal lineups, pick their favorite one of it, and then make 2 or 3 tweaks to it. And then that's their single entry lineup or 3 max lineup or that 4 max 250, one of the tournaments I really like.
Yeah. The instant pivot is just drop Geno down to Jameis Winston. You already have a Jameis, Tillman, Kamara stack. You get the other 2 good running backs with Achane, McCaffrey. Hunter Henry's probably fine. People like Drake May this week, so maybe you get a piece of him via Hunter Henry. And then Jacoby Myers is already in a secondary stack with Achane. So it's yes, if it's not Curtis Samuel in the Chicago D, you do have $300 left over when you move this to Winston as well. So you can move those pieces around as you see fit.
Let's see, at $2,700, you can get Falcons, Bills, Colts D at 26 probably isn't all that bad.
I like the Colts D anyway, because it's going to be going against Aaron Rodgers, who hasn't looked that great. Sorry to cuss, but it's been the case. And then also it looks like a little bit early on when people are going to a little bit more than the Bears D, it actually looks like the Jets D is where people are trying to target it a little bit. So $2,800 this week.
Right now, what I'm seeing in terms of projected ownership, the 2,300, maybe I was wrong about the Bears, that the Titans defense is the one at 2,300 where everyone's gravitating towards. Makes sense. It's a good defense. They're playing Sam Darnold. They're at home. I can get behind it. I don't know if I can get behind it at 17%.
Yeah, that makes it a little trickier, especially. But
just play the Bears for an extra $100. Like it's a coin flip.
I was trying to see if that got you to something different when we get the news for
Cooper?
For Cooper?
I'm just trying to see, is there anyone down at the very bottom who are the cheapest receivers who project out really well? Kayshon Boutte and Kendrick Bourne. So 2 Patriots receivers are at 35 and 31. Tyler Boyd. I mean, every week the projections like Tyler Boyd, and every week he sucks.
Okay, I found the nuts, though.
Okay, let's hear
it. It's early nuts. It's
early
easy
nuts?
to switch. Yeah, because it was Kayshon Boutte, who you talked about. You plug him in for your Samuel play. And then you keep Tillman and Myers and Henry. So therefore, why don't you just chuck in Drake May? You get Drake May, Boot, Henry. You get McCaffrey one off, Titans one off, and then you get the secondary stacks of Achane and Myers and Kamara and Tillman. So you've got everything set up the way we would normally set it up.
You could just leave Bears D in there if you want.
As well, yes.
Yeah,
if
which
you
I would
want.
rather do, I think.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's a personal choice, but I think that's what I'm saying. Like, people can just look at these. That's how they find these builds, and they say, oh, all the chalk hit. Yeah, but, what happens if May is 5%? Some of these guys are 5%. 3 or 4 of them end up 5-6%. It's not really all the chalk hit. We just took the optimal build and flipped it a little bit.
There are very few values, it seems, on the slate this week. Like Anthony Richardson at $5,300. Like, would you go back to Phony Tony?
We could. I think he's obviously going to be risky, and that's why I mentioned earlier, like, I think people are comfortable with that Jets defense as well. But if you are playing him, like, you go back to, I don't know if you want to play Adonai Mitchell or whatever, but he's up to 4,400 now. But I think
Pittman is back as well.
Yeah, he's trickier to figure out. You might just have to play him as like a one-off and just use him naked and play him that way. But I will say, from a strategy and process standpoint, like these weeks, and we'll get to it when we go through all the other stuff, is sometimes that's the case. And when there's values that are hard to find, the way to do it is often then to flip to roster construction like we just did. You may not like Boot or Henry as much as some of the other options, but if you love those running backs and it seems like they're the clear plays, then you can get there via these Drake May lineups. Even if you don't like them, it would still at least make sense if it all hit. It correlates it more. So that's another way to get around it.
Okay, well, what game would you like to start with on this slate? Do you want to do San Francisco and Seattle?
I think that's the number one to start with, because the Geno factor and then the McCaffrey factor, and then just even the other side of it with all the stuff going on San Francisco. You can use Jennings, 11 targets last week, all of that.
And still pretty cheap at the same time.
Yeah.
Although people will see that Ricky Bullitt scored the touchdown. Maybe they want to go to him. Is Kittle going to play? I think he is going to play.
I think he is, yeah.
But do you want to use him? He seems like he's legitimately hurt.
It's tough to say. It's more of like a game stack situation. These are the ones that often you see go off. Seattle, for whatever reason, is always in these, right? They're always throwing the ball.
Because their defense sucks.
Yeah, the pace is up. The defense there. It's in San Francisco, but you never know. We just saw last night a division battle, right, with Washington and Philadelphia, and it was a 50 total. And on the Mayo Media Network, we talked. I said, this is under. Like, why would they not just run and try and keep Hurts and Barkley off the field? It didn't work. Barkley still got there.
It's funny because that was actually the Eagles' strategy. Hey, let's just run and keep Jaden Daniels off the field.
That's right. And so when you see that, sometimes you kind of think of it, and those two teams had very high pace against each other. But how does the pace flip is when the game script flips, or the style of play they want to use. And so you could see something like that here and just pick off pieces if you wanted to as well. Kenneth Walker has to just be good leverage this week because he's not in that popular tier quite, and Geno's the most popular quarterback.
Well, it's funny because I just built out what's probably the stock answer to this question is how do you stack up this game? So the shell that I built was Geno with McCaffrey, JSN, and DK. But if you just flip that and went like Purdy, Jennings, Debo, Ricky Bullets, McCaffrey, whatever other one you wanted to throw in, and then use Kenneth Walker on the way back, that is just completely different than what everyone else is doing.
Oh, for sure. That's certainly a way you can go. You can also go the Geno stack.
That's what I got.
And not use McCaffrey. Like, do the Geno stack with Jennings
and fill up all your
wide receiver slots and play it that way. And also, we've talked about this plenty, but I've literally got live final seats on this. I've done well with this strategy. Is you can definitely just play Geno, Kenneth Walker, and one receiver, and get different that way as well. So you could play like Geno, Kenneth Walker, CMC with JSN or DK because they're the same price this week, and pick your poison that way. It can get there for sure.
I kind of like that because what we've seen from Kenneth Walker, especially in these catch-up spots since he returned from that injury, was that they use him in the passing game now.
He's had some sick touchdown catch. Like, if you look at him, you're like, man, he's like just as good of a receiver sometimes. So he's certainly viable in that format. And if you want to use it without CMC to free up another running back spot and get different that way, you can. But you could also play them together for that reason in that manner.
So it's tough because McCaffrey is now back to being $8,300. I mean, he was 8,000 last week. He didn't get there last week, did he?
No, but for what he did is like, that's incredible stuff. And you're like, and 8,300 is not really a bump if he gets even more than that and goes, does a little bit more this week. So I think he's fine, and people are going to be very comfortable just playing him.
So Geno, Kenneth Walker, DK. Would you throw DK in there? Or would you be like Lockett instead?
I actually like JSN more than all of them.
How come?
Slot matchup, really good in this case, and it's been decent enough to see it. And also, Geno's been going to him a ton. DK just getting back. Obviously, I like DK, and I think you should, and most will, at the same price. But I'll also preface it this way and say, JSN, I think you can play without Geno. I know last game that he got there was with 40 and it really boosted Geno, but I'm saying JSN can just get you 8 for 110 and 0 across the slot and picking up those catches. DK is likely to have more of a Jamar Chase style game, not necessarily 3 touchdowns, but in the sense of 3 plays with 2 touchdowns, and it all helps Geno. So I kind of like pairing up DK with the Geno stacks. And if you're going with like a secondary, CMC and JSN, or just Jennings and JSN, there's different ways you can use this game as pieces.
All right, I don't want to use McCaffrey.
That's what I'm saying. So I might do something like either the Geno stack, fill up my spots with Jennings, or I would go with just a secondary stack and be comfortable with something like a Jennings JSN and just let them pick up all those targets and catches and then use different stacks around them.
So JSN, DK, Jennings, and Geno Smith.
Yeah, fill up all your spots.
Is that we'll try to build out one shell from each game. Is that the shell that you want to go with here? Because I'm looking at ownership right now. McCaffrey 37% already. That's going to go up too.
It's certainly for a reason. But I think what you're saying and what I like for when we come back to the shell later on in the show is let's do it without McCaffrey, because it's not rocket science for us to tell you to go build Geno with the 2 receivers that you like and then put in McCaffrey. That's the stock shell that was before the show even started. We're saying let's build one without CMC when we get there, and I like your call. Let's fill up the wide receiver spots. We gave you the other idea of using Kenneth Walker if you want to and get a receiver spot back that way, but let's do Geno, Metcalf, JSN, with Jennings on the other side.
So that's what I have in projected ownership from this game right now. McCaffrey 37, Debo 22, Kenneth Walker 22, Brock Purdy 13. So there's your actual like stack or the popular plays that people are using. It's like Purdy with Debo, McCaffrey, Kenneth Walker, and the biggest losers you can find on this slate.
It'll get you away from that a little bit too, because Jennings is, he's more of a mid-tier price, I should say, like all these guys, even DK 6,500, they're not even close to the 7s. So, when you get a cheap tight end in here, when you get a cheap defense in here and you start lifting back up, you might not get to those same premium running backs, all 3 of them, but you can probably get 2 and a punt or something like that. So just to keep that in mind, this one leaves 5,200 per player on it right now.
Yeah, so we'll keep that one in for the moment. I want to go to Pittsburgh and Baltimore, because this is actually the highest total on the main slate on DraftKings, and I just don't see it soaking up a ton of ownership, weirdly enough. I think when people think of these 2 teams in their mind, they're like, oh, it's going to be 13-10. These are not the same teams as we're used to seeing. These teams can score. It's
the Ravens' defense is so bad, and Russ has turned it around. This is a perfect letdown spot, though, I will say.
You think so?
Oh, yeah. Pickens is the best in the world now. Everyone knows. We knew this breakout was coming. We did know this, but it doesn't mean it's going to continue this week. And also, I've talked about this plenty of times, but being a Ravens homer and big fan, they will bear down in certain spots like this where it's like, okay, we got to shut this down. And when everyone thinks Russ is they're letting Russ cook, they forget that Russ burns a lot of stuff and it's not good sometimes in that kitchen. And that could be the case this week.
Well, what's funny about this is when you take a look at where the ownership is gravitating towards, there's no one who's like popping off the charts, at least in early ownership, like it was in that last game that we talked about. So people are staying away from this game by and large. Kelvin Austin actually projects to be the highest owned guy for the moment at $3,600. He seems to be the pay down option that people really want to go to this week.
Here's the thing, and I agree.
And that's going to be like 6% by the time it gets here. But
yeah, nobody knows which Raven to play or wants to really play a Raven. Even with the Derrick Henry conversation around, I think it's for 11 games in a row he's going for
Derrick
a touchdown.
Henry, 2%.
Yeah.
Lamar, 2%.
But it's because his price. He's 8,100, and that's not to say it's not fair for him. He gets better as the year goes on. All the samples, things go in his favor, but there's all those other running backs, and that was just the 3 that fit the optimal. There's like 3 more beyond that people still would want well before Henry. And so I don't truly believe Calvin Austin with that ownership is A, going to be at that ownership, or B, be played without Russ. And so I'm actually seeing early on that Russ is still getting some love.
Me
and
too.
I think it's going to be the other factor I was going to mention with Pickens being $7K, not Best Buy pricing, scares people a little, so it doesn't scare them enough. It keeps him in check instead of him getting to 25% or something if he was like 6,500. But the way people cut into the Pickens ownership and the shell that people will build is going to be Russ, Pickens, Austin, and then who do you want? Is it going to be get unique in the running back spot off one of those other expensive guys? You clearly have the money because tons of Russ lineups will have CMC or Alvin Kamara or something like that. You just flip that to Henry and get different that way. Or it could just be someone like Zay Flowers on the other side.
Is there any value in Lamar here at 2%? Or even if it's sub 5%?
There's always potential. The guy can put up 40.
But like, is it something that you would go to?
I'm not excited about it right now, no.
All right. So what if you did something like, because I think I'm more comfortable with the Lamar side because I really do think it's so different. than every other lineup this week if we can find the running backs to make it work. And that becomes the problem when you pay $8K for a quarterback, because Geno is over $2,000 cheaper and he can put up 80% of what the upside of Lamar is going to be. I understand that. But if we built out Lamar with, let's say, Bateman, and just say, hey, I hope he throws to Bateman. He's $4,600. We'll keep it there. Lamar does his normal Lamar stuff. Maybe Charlie Kohler scores a touchdown. I don't want to have to try to predict that part of it.
Right.
And then we go to, I don't know, Freiermuth on the other side and just try to get the other cheap pieces. Does that not work for you?
No.
Okay.
What I would do, and it's like it's very finite, but it would get you different, and I'll flip it two ways. One is I would go with Lamar. I would go with who did you just mention, Bateman, and I would go with Mark Andrews.
But it looks like likely he's going to be back.
Don't care.
Which just keeps Andrews off the field.
Well, I don't think so at all. Don't care about that. I would go with Andrews anyway, or you play likely if you like him.
I would rather play Freiermuth on the way back.
I would not. I would, and the reason is because it's $6,900 for Zay Flowers. Most Lamar stacks are going to feature Zay Flowers. They'll just make it work and punt somewhere else. It's $100 more to go to Pickens. So the way you flip the build is you go Lamar, Bateman, pick your tight end. If you like likely, go ahead. I like Andrews.
I don't like likely. I just find that I don't like Andrews.
I'm saying you don't even have to double stack him. You could just play him with Bateman and one. I'm just saying the difference here in the play is to move off the most common guy that people would pair Lamar with, which is Zay, and move the $100 up to Pickens. And most people have Pickens with Wilson, so you get the double whammy when Lamar crushes Wilson and Zay is not needed, and it's still Pickens, right? It's just Pickens does 10 for 101, and it doesn't really mean Russell Wilson has a great day.
Deontay Johnson revenge game?
That's possible as well. Do you like it?
No.
4,800.
I absolutely do. Not at 4,800, I don't.
They got to get him involved at some point. But yeah, I'm not as high on it as what people are talking about either. I don't think anyone's actually going to click the button. They're just mentioning it.
The other thing that I would look at in this game, Najee's back at practice in full, but I still like Jalen Warren here, and he's only $5,300. Like if you want to punt off one of your running back spots to double pay up again, like Bateman, Calvin Austin, Freiermuth, Mark Andrews, Jalen Warren, these would need to be the pieces in this game that you go to if you don't want to have a disaster everywhere else.
Yeah, this game is tricky because it has the total that's exciting people, but the ownership will be kept in check because nobody can figure it out. So getting combinations around it, we just talked through and kind of didn't even really land on a shell. It's like we kind of did.
Could we just do it without Andrews? Could we just go Lamar, Bateman,
That's what I said.
Pickens?
Yeah, just go Lamar. I just like the flip of Pickens to Bateman, or sorry, Pickens off of Zay. Even though Pickens is going to be higher owned, I want people to understand this too.
But not with Lamar.
It's just not with Lamar. That's what I'm saying. Everyone's like, well, he's going to be the popular one. He is, but he's not going to be as much in the Lamar lineups. And you also, if you can find value on the slate by the time we get to Sunday, you could also do a Lamar, Pickens, Zay. And then where everyone's picking between Pickens and who's the other guy? Flowers?
Yeah.
And Pickens and Zay, you would have both of them in the same lineup.
Okay, so we'll leave that. That's like a little mini shell, and that leaves with less money than we had in the Seattle, San Francisco.
To be clear, real quick though, is just George Pickens with Wilson and Austin, which is what currently everybody's seeing and showing up, and still doesn't have a lot of ownership probably by the time we get there. If you added Derrick Henry into that, it leaves you around 5,100. So it's very similar to the stack the shell we had just built, but probably how we would expect people to build it.
So it'd be Russ, Pickens, and Austin.
Austin cuts into the pricing, so you feel like you're getting two receivers for 10-6, and then I think people will be comfortable in that build, at least some at the higher level.
Can I say that I like Mike Williams more than I like Calvin Austin?
Sure, yeah.
Because it looks like Van Jefferson's not going to play. I would assume that's going to mean more routes for Mike Williams. It's funny because we talked about Mike Williams last week, and you can't really play him because we have no idea how much he's going to be on the field. But if he's going to be on the field, his package is going to be touchdown plays, and that's exactly what it was.
Yeah, I also think something to do with, and we didn't quite get there, but like if you went the Russ side with Mike Williams and Freiermuth, and not Pickens, because the most common Russ setup is just going to be automatically to plug in Pickens, and for good reason. Look what he's been up to this last couple of weeks, but it's also not guaranteed that that's going to stay that way. And there is a chance the Ravens secondary is extremely bad. I get it, the worst going, but they can still just say, we're going to bracket this dude, and they're going to beat us everywhere else, which is theirs for Big Mike. He's going to crush. And that opens all that up.
It's really funny you say that, because I noticed that watching the Thursday night football game with Washington. Like, Washington does not have a good defense, but whatever they commit to doing, they can be really good at. But once they commit to doing that one thing, they're useless at everything else. Which they went out of their way on Thursday night to make sure that Devonta and A.J. Brown were not going to beat them. So the Eagles just ran all over them.
Yeah, look at the holes that Barkley found.
And it was no different than the Ravens game that they played. They're like, we are not going to let Lamar run all over us. We are going to keep him in the pocket and make him beat us that way. And that's what he did. He basically didn't run in that game and threw all over them because that's what Washington gave them.
If I'm the Ravens and they use a ton of analytics and all this stuff, like I'm doing that. And it's Russ. They have to be saying, if we're sitting here saying it, like Russ is cooking until he's not, like we said. So let's try and make him throw to Mike Williams, Calvin Austin, and if Pat Freiermuth catches some 9-yard catches over the middle, good for us. Full point PPR over the middle. Got to use a tight end anyway. But if Mike Williams gets open again, or if it's Austin or whoever it might be, that still gets the Russ stacks there quite easily. And then you could play Zay on the run back. You could play Henry, Bateman.
That's what I was wondering.
Want.
Like, would you want to play Zay or would you want to play Derrick Henry?
I kind of want to play Zay at that point. I know that Henry leverages off the, sort of is a pivot, I should say, to the other running backs that are expensive. But if you play a Zay or a Bateman and just say that this is a passing affair, the back and forth, and Lamar has to start chucking now, those guys can rack them up and get catches, and then you're still able to fit pretty much the same stuff we were talking about earlier.
Well, would you want to go, because the way that we can build this out, if we put in Russ, Mike Williams, and Freiermuth with Zay Flowers, we have $5,800 left per player. If we did it with Bateman, we probably have over $6,000 per player, and we could probably jam in those 3 stud running backs.
That's what I'm saying. And there's no, that's all the chalk running backs say. Yeah, they do. That's why they're all popular and 30%. But is anyone playing Russ with Mike Williams, Pat Freiermuth, and a random run back, either Zay or Bateman? Not very much, but should they? It's almost a 49-point total. Yeah, we went that way. We explained why, and that's where we landed.
All right, so we'll keep that one. $6,200 per player remaining in that lineup.
Is that with you did trust on Bateman, right?
I went with Bateman instead of Flowers.
Let's leave that for when we get to the show.
moment.
Yeah.
What game do we want to go to now? I'm looking at the totals. 46 Buffalo, Kansas City. Jacksonville, Detroit is 47, which is slightly higher, although that is all implied on the Detroit side of the ball.
I think that's a quick discussion.
I do have a pet theory on this game.
Go ahead, yeah. 14-point favorites at home.
They're going to let Goff fucking cook in this game after getting embarrassed last week.
And just go
like that is a Dan Campbell narrative from me projecting onto Dan Campbell, who seems to love a good narrative, is that Goff looked bad and I don't want to say he got embarrassed because he came back and he played well in that game. They ended up getting the win. But all of the discussion about Jared Goff is the MVP, that all went out the window. Mm-hmm. They were like, oh, the rest of this team is good. Goff is just some guy who shows up and like, hey, just don't turn the ball over. We're good. Let him cook against like the worst defense in the league. 5 touchdowns for Goff.
Can we do 4-man shell? But
I would say super stacked Detroit.
Here's what I liked coming in, and I'm glad you brought this up, because even when people touch this game this week, and what I mean by that is like, well, I may as well get a piece. They got a 14-point favorite at home. You know they're going to Montgomery and Gibbs, or Gibbs, I should say, which is fine. It makes perfect sense. But what if Montgomery just gets one of those touchdowns and the other 4 or 5 are through the air, and you could have Goff, Amon-Ra, Jameson Williams, and Laporta? And
is Laporta playing?
I think he's going to. We'll see. He's still Q. If not, it's Brock Wright, and you just get even more money. But I think Laporta is going to play, and I saw some stuff on him that he almost made the tidbits. But I was just bringing that up. But with Q tag, I didn't want to risk it.
Goff, Amon-Ra, Jameson, and Gibbs,
or that. Yeah, I'm fine with that too.
And just load up. Like, is there any Jacksonville player that you would actually run back here?
There's always options, but it's going to be, man.
Evan Ingram is the only one I can think of. Because I think that Brian Thomas is too hurt to be doing anything. Our boy Parker Washington, big 0 last week. That's always fun.
That'll happen. He's 4K now, though. Should we go to him? It's when he's 39 or less.
He's somehow more expensive after a 0.
Yeah, Ingram is the guy I would like here for sure.
But I don't think there's a point of playing him at $5,200. Like, that seems unnecessary.
I think the interesting part would more so be the conversation around if you just drop Gibbs out of it now, and if you went, I like it. I'm saying, but if you just went. Well, no, I'm saying go to Ingram and keep Amon-Ra and Jameson for a shell that actually gives you similar numbers to what we had on paper. 5K left. Just like the first act was 5,200. You don't have to love it, but it's something. And again, most people are playing a cheap tight end this week, right? To fit those running backs. You saw the Henrys. We'll get to Davis Allen later on. And guys, if Brock Wright becomes a thing. I am
not playing Davis Allen. What kind of crazy person is playing Davis Allen?
Anybody that just wants to fit everything, man.
I get that, but
that's what happens.
There's got to be a better option than Davis Allen. When all these guys are back for the Rams, like the tight end is just like an empty vessel out there that just kind of wanders around in the darkness. Stafford doesn't look for them. Right. It's just a last case ditch effort. And they might be open. Like, that's it. That's the only routes that these guys. Higbee was the only guy that could overcome that a little bit. Davis Allen's not as good as Tyler Higbee.
Yeah, he treated Higbee a lot more like a receiver, and it was also with everybody else spreading it out. But now that offense is just so concentrated. I know we'll get there, but it's like with Kyron Williams, Kupp, Nakua, done.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, Allen fits, and again, it would be more fitting for a stack in that game or something. But yeah, this spot is, I actually love the Jared Goff call because I just think people think it's a blowout, so you can't go there. The blowout has to be caused by somebody. It may end up just being the running backs because that's also what Detroit likes to do.
Or they'll hand it off to Amon-Ra and he'll throw a touchdown to someone. Like, you always have to play with. That's always in play with Detroit.
They mess around, man. They want to show out a little bit, and this is a spot, just like you said, to get right for a Goff get right spot. Makes sense.
Would you go with either like a Tim Patrick or Khalif Raymond in this? Like, if we wanted to add one more piece to this, Goff with 3 receivers, or maybe not even Jameson Williams, get one of the cheap guys in there.
I really like Amon-Ra no matter what, and I really like Jameson Williams no matter what. I liked you adding Gibbs. It just gets very expensive. And
but he is one of your elite running. Like, instead of jamming in the 3 elite running backs, Gibbs is an elite running back.
Oh, he still fills the hole. That's what I mean. It's perfectly fine. It's just at some point, it's like now we're really, when you're doing it that way, you're kind of really hoping it is the 5-6 touchdown day. And it very well could be. Look at the spot. I'm just saying you really kind of need that to happen. Otherwise, you get to some ceiling issues.
Really wish ETN was cheaper.
Yeah, what was up with him last week? He was getting in there quite a bit.
Because Tank Bigsby got hurt on like the 3rd play of the game.
Maybe that's what it was.
He rolled his ankle. Now, Bigsby, I don't believe he's back to practice. I think he is going to play. Let's see. Did not practice on Thursday, so I guess Friday today is going to tell the story on him. If it's not him, it might be Dearness Johnson. They like using him as like the... Jacksonville is no stranger to being like, hey, we're out of this game. Let's bring in Dearness Johnson and throw to him. That's all Mac Jones can do. Mac Jones is terrible.
Yeah, I don't think you need anything like that. If it gets there, then great.
It's just he was $4,000. Like, instead of, if people are going to jam in Davis Allen, I understand that running back is far more important than throwing away a tight end spot. But if your whole strategy of this lineup is they're going to score 50 points, let's just jam in as many Lions as we can. The only way to make this work is just try to correlate it with this loser who might catch the ball.
I'll just put Detroit D on top and really go a full onslaught maybe and just jam it all.
They're not even cheap. They're like the same price as Dearness Johnson.
That's what I'm saying. And I would rather that for $3,800 they are, pay the same as the 4K and just use up your onesie spot, save those running back positions for maybe a little bit more. But I think you do have to leave it. Maybe we'll see when we get there, but I think you do have to leave tight end and one wide receiver slot open because that's where you're going to find the values that really make it work, especially if trying to jam all the way to the Gibbs spot you're mentioning. Yeah,
well, I'm going to keep that in. The 4-player shell of this Detroit game is 4 Lions players.
I like it.
Including a quarterback with his running back.
I think if Laporta plays, I'm playing him. Just to say it, because I saw some stuff. I like it. And he's also looking for a get-right spot.
The door blew open.
Oh, wow.
To the studio.
What's that? It's a sign.
It's high winds. I mean, we were watching. I woke up and watched golf this week. Like, I tried to follow the golf. I was like, I forget this is the only tournament all year that is in our time zone. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't start like, hey, I woke up at 6 and like, oh yeah, golf hasn't started yet. You'd wait now or no, it's just on.
Yeah.
And we're getting horrible weather, and I know that they're getting horrible weather too.
This is a sign, though. We're talking about Jared Goff. Jared Goff blew the door off right off the Jaguars, going to score 5 touchdowns. I think it's Jared Goff week, man. That's the sign.
It has been so windy here and just all the way up the East Coast for like the past week.
I know.
Are we starting to get to the point of the season now where you just want to target it? Not out of your way to target indoor games, but like any tiebreaker indoor game. Fast track, not cold, speed.
Not quite yet for me. But I do watch that quite a bit. Like it's more close to end of November. After Thanksgiving is a better way to put it. American Thanksgiving, that is. But it's only because right now there's still like I'm looking at the weather early on for this coming in today, and there's not much going on. And even I like when stuff scares people off. I know it's not going to because today's already Friday. We're close enough to Sunday. But like Seattle, San Francisco looks like a good spot. Obviously, when you're playing your lineups in that game, and when we get to that, you're playing for it to be a good game. If those go to the pasture, as I always say, then they died anyway. But I like a game like that where like, oh, could be a little bit windy and could be a little bit of rain, and then everyone gets scared of it, and then they go up and put up 55 points because a slip here, slip there, whatever it might be. It's not that serious, but people make it into something. So that's how I think of it.
I'm also less concerned about weather in West Coast games.
True.
Unless it's like sometimes in Seattle can get bad in December because it's like cold, windy, and rainy. But it's never as cold as it is in like Buffalo or New England.
Well, the Pittsburgh game
could be exactly the same way.
Nobody wants anyone from Chicago and Green Bay anyway, but it may be a good segue to that Rams-New England game because New England is a spot. And we just talked about the other Jared Goff, Matt Stafford, and all his guys.
Well, I actually want to go to Cleveland and New Orleans.
Yeah, that's another good one.
Are people jumping on MVS?
No,
No one's going to use him?
no, definitely not. He got 2 touchdowns on 3 plays, and it was ridiculous.
He stepped in and he was basically Shaheed. This is what Shaheed does.
Yeah, and Shaheed did get away with it for more weeks than one after people said he wouldn't.
But
so-
he was when the moment the Shaheed went out in the Saints offense was the moment the Saints offense went down the toilet.
Mhm.
Now they've actually found someone who can stretch the field again for them. Not saying that he's going to put up 25 DK points every single week, but his role in this offense is to be that guy. And that's a valuable spot for a cheap player. Like that, isn't that what you want from a cheap player? A guy who can just get there on one catch.
He's a home run play. Yeah, that's how you'd plug him in, and it makes sense because people are playing Jameis Winston and Tillman.
Yeah.
So you could just round it out.
But by the way, the move, I mean, I say this all the time, and Tillman keeps getting there and keeps getting away with it. Judy is the main receiver in that offense. It's Njoku and it's Judy. So why not
$100 more.
Jameis, Njoku, and Judy?
Triple J,
Triple J.
even though the J is after because the N inside is
Yeah, it all works.
Njoku. But yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, I'm fine with that. And then Taysom Hill in the flex.
As the
Second tight end.
Oh, as the second tight end.
He got robbed last week. That was the worst call maybe of the season for a hold. I think it was a hold or whatever it was there. He's had like an 88-yard touchdown. They showed it in 4 different replays and angles, and it was not a flag. And I needed him, so I'm pissed.
That sucks. I feel bad about your lineup that didn't work that way. I've actually I put out I lost AJ Brown not going higher than his receiving total on Thursday Night Football killed all of my underdog plays. But I actually made one for the weekend, and one of the linchpins of it was, and it's already been slashed, it was Taysom Hill under 29.5 rushing yards. I believe it's down to 23 already.
Yeah, that was a good pick. That's just, it's not likely. It's just what, the thing about him is obviously $4,500. It's sort of a mid-range. You're filling off a onesie. In this case, we're using Njoku, which I like better anyway, just to pay up. But the thing about Taysom is he can do anything. Wildcats, throw touchdowns. They could use him for whatever, and they're still missing all their dudes. So
It looks like Cedric Wilson might be back this week.
yeah.
But just adding another body to be in there is all I'm saying.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, I just like, again, he does or he doesn't, and that's what I look at is like $4,500. But I do like Njoku better with the Judy call for $100 more.
So here's my problem with Taysom Hill in this lineup with MVS. I understand it's a different position, but now we're just talking about a flex because we've already used Njoku into this lineup. I'd rather play MVS than Taysom Hill if we're talking about a flex, because I feel like you need 2 touchdowns from Taysom Hill in order to make him any good, whereas you only need 1 from MVS because his is going to be for 80 yards.
I wouldn't use him like that. That's what I'm saying. We already had Njoku, and I was just mentioning him and saying he'd have to be a flex in that version. I like the Jameis, Judy, Njoku. Most will have Alvin Kamara in there as the this is almost like the Geno one. Like, what are we talking about here? And everyone will have Jameis, Tillman, one of Njoku or somebody else with Alvin Kamara. We know what the stock shell is. I like your home run hitter going back to because everyone says he sucks and there's no way he could do it again. That's what people say about Shaheed. This is the dude that stepped into the Shaheed spot. Is it risky? Absolutely it is, but we know what he can do. And other people are going to look at it like this. He doesn't need 30 points at
he needs
$4,400.
16 points.
He could catch
points.
one 80-yard bomb this week only and another single catch for 15 yards or something like that and still be somewhat valuable at that point based on that price point. So I think, 15, 16, that's what's that, 19 points right there, just on what I described, 19 and a half or something.
Yeah, without the bonus too.
Yeah, that's true. So because I only gave him like 95 yards there, but just the point being, that's what people are forgetting. And this steps up a little bit differently in 2 ways because I don't know how many people get to Judy. Most play Tillman Njoku. Most play Judy or Tillman instead of Judy, and then MVS instead of Kamara. So I like the shell you set up.
How do you feel about Chubb this week at $6,000? Coming off the bye week now, I'm guessing like this is a close-ish game. You don't expect anyone to hop out to a big lead. Not necessarily as a part of any stack because unless you're stacking up Derek Carr with his options, which you don't want to do.
You're just leveraging all the other stuff.
But like as a onesie value running back, I could see Chubb being very valuable in this game.
I'm certainly in. He's double leverage, right? Anything on the Winston and Tillman stuff, he leverages his own team by going to him scoring the touchdowns instead on the ground, and he's opposite side of Kamara he's not Kamara? Oh, no shit. He's $2,200 less. It's priced in. So if you watch the interviews on him and stuff like this, he says he's good. He says he's ready to go, and this is a good matchup for him. It's just everyone has, for good reasons, 3 or 4 other runners. There's already 5 or 6 running backs ahead of him, but why would you not have him in your pool based on everything we just discussed? I will.
So let's
he's a one-off, though.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, once we start filling out some of these shells.
If you need $6K, why not?
If you need the cheaper but still good running back, he seems to be the best option. Like, when we run through all the running backs who are right around that line. Like I mentioned, ETN, who knows, right? I guess if Bigsby doesn't play, it does give ETN a little bit more value, but it's DeAndre Swift at 66. Montgomery, Pollard with Spears back going against Minnesota is not a good matchup. It's not a good spot. Najee's splitting. Stevenson, who cares?
The ETN thing is like he's like the Eckler of last night. Let's say they get crushed.
Yeah,
by
they need
Detroit.
like 8 for 89, but he needs to score a touchdown.
He's going to get you like 15, and is that going to be enough? I know he's probably, but it's not like he's super cheap. The one thing I will say about this game too is a 44.5 total. I think this game has a way better chance of going over than the Ravens game. And it's crazy. That's 48.5, and this is 44. One is in a dome, one's outside. We already had that conversation.
I mean, the defenses could both score for these teams.
And not only that, it's an if this, then that, but it's the pickup pace. If Chubb goes for a big touchdown early, or if they do throw a bomb to MBS and it's 80 yard and everyone's like, oh my God, he did it again. And that just speeds this thing up real quick. And then you're in the dome with these guys on both sides with pretty concentrated offenses, which can all lead to good fantasy stuff.
Yeah, just going down the list. I think that people are going to use Audric Estime.
If they need value later in the week, I think so.
I don't think he's a good play. Maybe he ends up smashing.
4,500.
4,500 is great and everything, but if Atlanta jumps up in that game by any sort of margin, he's not seeing the field.
Yeah. I mean, are we talking about that game now?
Yeah, well, Atlanta, Denver, just because this one seems to be pretty unpopular across the board.
Yeah, I've got it pretty cut and dry for how I would set it up, but what do you think?
Well, Kirk's dealing with some sort of throwing shoulder problem right now, which is not great.
I'm not on the Kirk side.
I know. Nix is the better fantasy play in this game. He's $6,200. Like, is it just naked Nix, or do you find
I like Sutton?
Sutton?
Yeah.
I don't like receiver ones against Atlanta, but I guess if he's the only guy, what's his price?
Yeah, you could play Vile again or something if you want to try to make other shit work. But
59's fine. I mean, sometimes can you? I know that we don't like doing this because we're building out shells of games. Can we just say Bo Nix and just maybe he'll throw to Kroll?
You would love that if he did. It's still going to be useless when he does, by the way. But just to note,
hey, it would be good for Bo Nix if I don't play Kroll. Just play Bo Nix.
I was going to say the way I would set it up differently would just be this. For me, this would be more of a 3-man shell than a 4, and I would just
Nick
try
Sutton, Bijan.
Yes. Let Bijan do his thing on the ground. The guy, everyone
he's
complains,
doing more too.
Everyone complains about the same thing. Algier. They ran him 3 times at the goal, and they did. It didn't work, and then guess who ran it in on the 4th time? Him. Yes, that outcome is lucky, but we know going into these games, Algier is going to be involved. Stop stressing that part of it. Like it sucks.
It's also factored into his price and
Everything
projection.
is factored in.
If Algier didn't exist, I mean, no one complains that Mims gets 8 carries a game from Kamara.
It's just always the same thing. But people they're forgetting that it's in there, and they just want it. If your guy doesn't get you 3 touchdowns in the first quarter, and they all go to him, and everything goes your way. I'll tell you what, I've won a ton of times at DFS. I don't remember any that were like because it started out well. Talk to somebody else's. I mean, I've talked to all these people about it. I don't think it ever starts out well. It's usually the guy that won the Millie a couple weeks ago did an interview, and it was like, yeah, I had 50% Tyreek Hill who completely bombed. He's like, I took the dog for a walk. My day was done. Guess what happened later in that day? He won $1 million and won the whole thing with a different lineup in his portfolio. So just let it play out. It happens. Guys get vultured. It's football. They're keeping them healthy. They do not care about your fantasy teams for the most part. So they're not worried about that. And you just got to keep that in mind and know that it's priced in.
That was another piece that I actually put, and I'm going to be dead wrong about this one, but the Taysom Hill lower rushing yards at 28.5. I also had Estime under rushing yards at 55.5. That number's gone up to like 61. People are like all in on his over this week.
A lot of stuff looks in his favor.
It does. If they get up,
I think it's if they get up early, though.
Yeah, they have to be up. Like you're just playing the other side of the coin. And do we really trust Denver that much to be up 10-0 in a game?
I don't know. Their defense is pretty good. What's their defense cost this week? 2,900.
That's pretty good.
Get the defense with Estime and just call it a day.
You could play that route. I don't mind that. Like if that's a good way to use it. But I could see there being more points in this game than people think.
Another one could be sneaky.
Yeah.
In Denver. West Coast.
Because, Denver has really, it depends on what you think of the Atlanta offense, I think. And it's up and down week to week, it seems, where one week they look like a top 3 offense in the league, and the next week's like, even last week they lost. They still generated double the yardage of the Saints.
They're like they
shot themselves in the foot the entire time. But one thing we've seen against Denver, the good offenses still beat them up. Like, Baltimore had no problems pounding them for 40-plus points. Yeah, they were able to shut down Kansas City. Kansas City's offense is like slightly above average. if that.
Is that? But that's kind of how I feel about Atlanta. I was gonna say like the Atlanta median or floor Falcons. The F in Falcons might stand for floor because it always feels like their offense is just stuck. It's like so you can only get so much out of Pitts. You can only get so much out of London, or Mooney has a big game. Great for him.
I feel like it gets stuck because they don't score enough touchdowns, especially passing wise. But yardage wise, they're always there.
Oh, for
and
sure.
they score long touchdowns, which is helpful too.
Excuse me. That's why I'm saying though, if you get what you just said is so true, and it's okay. So Mooney gets you,
5 for 81,
5 for 80, and nothing else. And London gets you 7 for 70. It's a big day for him. And then Pitts, everyone goes nuts because he gets 8 for 80. It's finally a great game. It's like he got 8 for 80. Like that's the game.
And then Ray scores 3 for 23 and scores 2 touchdowns.
Or that. Yeah, Ray is on the field a ton. I will say he never gets respect. He's 4,200. I think he's played like 85 or 90% of the snaps.
But he is the 5th guy in this offense.
That's the problem. So which keeps everything nice and balanced.
If snap share was it is critical as one piece of the pie to try to figure out. But that was the case. I would be a millionaire off Justin Watson already. Guy is always on the field for the Chiefs. Doesn't do anything.
Yeah, that's the
He's there to block.
I got it.
And I think Ray is there to be like a speedy decoy. Like they can use him the 1 or 2 times a game, and it works. But it makes the defense pay attention to him when he goes in motion to get these other guys free who are better than he is.
That's exactly what it is, because he gets you like the 18-yard grab and you're like, oh man, Ray's there again. He does it. It's that one move, and then now the next thing opens up. It's almost like the getting the running back going a bunch and then you open it up, right? Same thing with this pass game. It's kind of with these speedy guys. They do it that way. He'll get his odd catch, but it's never racking up to be enough.
Just trying to take a look at it. Do you think that McCaffrey and Kamara are the two that get jammed in everywhere?
Yes, and HN.
And HN because he's 72.
That game is so obvious though. Like I know we're not talking about it yet, but like HN Myers done. That's what everybody's doing. Like it's set. We can talk more about it, but I'm saying we know what people are doing with that game. They're playing HN Myers and calling it a day.
All right, well, let's try that. Miami and Vegas. I actually like Vegas to win this game.
Okay.
So I personally don't think it's going to be super high scoring. We'll build it out, obviously, because I'm wrong about everything. But could you play Tua without Tyreek? Could you play A-Chain, Tua, and Waddle?
I would actually, surprisingly, I would go the Baker Mayfield route of what the Buccaneers have turned into, just playing Otton and one of the running backs. I would play Jonnu Smith, and I would play A-Chan if I'm playing Tua like that. Or I would honestly just play both of them without Tua. You know what could be a triple stack in this, or like a mini 3-man shell would be A-Chan, Jonnu Smith, and Myers, and it just adds in a trickle piece to the common secondary stack that we already mentioned.
Are we just out on Bowers then?
No, because if I was flipping it and you think they win, you would go quarterback, Myers, Bowers, and put A-Chan on the other side. That's a different way to play that secondary stack, adding in the quarterback and the tight end. And it's still kind of value-based, 5,800. 5,600, and then what's
Jonnu's 38.
No, I'm talking about using Bowers.
Oh, using Bowers?
Yeah. How much is his quarterback?
Minshew.
5K.
5K.
So yeah, let's just check the shell for 2 seconds because you're using the same shell everybody else is, but we're saying the way that might work.
We're just
it's a balanced build.
It's funny because
5,200, 53.
In my mind, this doesn't work because I just don't think there's a lot of points in this game.
Okay.
I think this game is.
If you think that
I think
the
this
Raiders
game looks
could
a lot.
Win,
I think this game, but I think the Raiders might win like 17-14.
Okay, so you're putting that.
I think this game looks a lot like that Monday night game that we just saw between the Rams and the Dolphins, where you really wouldn't want to have had anyone from that game. The guy that you would want to be like Puka, and the Puka role here is actually either Myers or Bauer.
So it's tricky then. The only thing that at that point I would say is HA can get there in any game, so that doesn't matter. So then the secondary stack flip that we may get to later, if we have the money just to differentiate, would be to go to Bowers over Myers, because Bowers is just not going to get the ownership that Myers is. And it's $200 more at a onesie position.
We're at the time of year where people are going to ask you what you want for a gift, and you're going to say, I don't want anything, or I don't know. Here's an answer. Doer. My Doer pants I got last week are the most comfortable pieces of clothing that I own. I got a pair of denim stretch jeans and these joggers. These joggers are amazing. You get them in a whole bunch of colors, but they don't look like joggers. So when you go out into public, I mean, we would wear crappy jogging pants out in public because they're so comfortable all the time, but then people see you're like, who is this absolute goober walking around in his joggers wearing his pajamas? No. The Doer joggers
look so good. They are lightweight, they are stylish, they are relaxed, and beyond anything, they, again, are the most comfortable things I own. I wear them like 3 days in a row, which is a lot for a pair of pants. I absolutely love my Doers, and I know you're going to love them too. Check out Doer's flagship stores in LA or Denver, or shop online at shopdoer.com/PME. Right now, here's the thing. My listeners, you good people, listening to the Pat Mayo Experience, get 20% off your first purchase when you use my exclusive URL, shopdoer.com/PME. This is an awesome deal. Don't wait. Go get 20% off right now at shopdoer.com/PME.
Rams in New England. You talked about the concentration on the Rams side of the ball. We don't really have that on the Patriots side of the ball, but all the Patriots guys are super cheap.
Mm-hmm.
So what do we do?
That's what I'm risking it on for sure. Hunter Henry already a good spot. Don't care what anyone says. There's no value. He's definitely a good spot. And I actually think he's going to come in lower owned than Davis Allen by the end of the week. We'll see how that actually shakes out.
Give me Hunter Henry.
It is $1,400
off his zero, I think.
Don't get me wrong. It's $1,400, but I'm saying this is what I mentioned to you earlier when I flipped it. We kind of did this one off the top, but all I'm saying is Drake May is right there with Geno and with Jameis Winston. So no matter what, if Drake May gets a little bit of love and people want to win the Millie Maker, that could be a thing, but he's squeezed. He's right there at least to keep him in check. I think Geno is for sure going to be owned. I think Jameis is for sure going to be owned. May is going to get ownership, but it has to be kept in check. Hunter Henry is going to get a little bit ownership, but he at least pairs with May, and you can stop there. Pick your poison now. Williams, Kupp, Nakua. Nobody will truly know. We can make our case in a second.
I don't think that anyone's going to use Kyron.
Right. That's a great example of what to do here because he's got to be kept in check based on those other running backs around him. You could run with that stack and not try and figure out if it's Pop Douglas, Boot, Bourne, whoever else it's going to be there. And I'm actually okay with that. This is a great way to set it up. And you have 5,400 and you get you get all your wide receivers wide open. But that's just my first thoughts. I don't know if you have another take on Williams versus Kupp and Nakua. It's obviously one of them, but who is it?
I would just say, how popular do you think that the Kupp, Nakua, Stafford stack is going to be? Because that's very expensive.
Not very popular.
So it'll be Stafford with one of them and Davis Allen?
Most likely Nakua because of his first 2 games back and everything that people have seen with it, even though Kupp's there, but he's $200 less than Kupp. So I would assume Nakua is going to get the steam a little bit.
I think that, I wonder how much. Let's see. Demarcus Robinson, I guess he's 5,100, so it doesn't really work because he is still pretty expensive.
And I think that was a product of like.
The Demarcus Robinson role has not changed at all season. It's just he is better when the other 2 guys are back because he gets his 4 targets a game. They look for him in the red zone because the defense just focuses on all of the other guys. But
somebody went out of that game for that second big touchdown. His only good game of the season was 2 weeks ago. And
he had back-to-back games with 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, okay. I guess he had 17 points the week before with 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Like that's
but that's what but now that he's at 5,100, when he was at like 3,800, that made a lot more sense because he gets to be the guy. Everything that people want from Allen this week, we're like, oh, he's the guy that no one pays attention to. That's actually Demarcus Robinson in that offense. And sometimes they just turn to him for drives at a time. They look for him in the red zone. They don't do that with their tight end. But at 5,100, I'd rather just play Pop Douglas as a part of my stack at 47 at that point.
I guess that's the only thing I could say is if someone's going the other way, it must just be Stafford, Allen, and then probably Nakua for the sake of this. I think this is how people run it. You have almost 6K left, and it's Pop Douglas that they land on the other side. Maybe Boot or something like that, and that's a way to sort of go in this game, but it's tricky because all that can get eaten up quickly by Kyron Williams or Kupp or whatever else. So you kind of got to commit to this game if you're going to it, and I think have some more. Like if you're playing Stafford, you need enough Stafford because you're going to have to cover some of these angles, or like it's hard just to commit to him and say, well, I just think it's going to be Kupp this week. How would you know? It's going to be whoever it's going to be. And so you'd have to have some real commitment to this game.
So I want to go back because we built out shells for, I believe, 10 lineups right now. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 lineups. I'll leave one open for me. I'll put all these into the 10 max. I'm going to scrub the Dolphins one with the Raiders. Don't want that one.
Agree.
Because obviously we can't build a stack for every game and start submitting lineups for every game. And we have to get to Buffalo and Kansas City at some point.
Why?
We're going to talk about it. That might be a game that we keep on the edges, but
never Mahomes. They told me last week he was going to change the game, and he was back. And then Bo Nix beat him in the same game at thousands less, and he was one of the worst quarterbacks plays on the slate. So good for fantasy, though. A real good life quarterback, a QB1 type week, but not good for daily fantasy. So keep remembering that.
Allen and Kareem Hunt.
Well, Allen is the Mahomes Jr. on the other side, basically. It's this week maybe, but with Cooper, if he's coming back and all that, it makes it even trickier. Last week, at least you could try and make it work with Shakir and Kincaid or Hollins and Kincaid or something like that. But this one gets a little bit trickier. I would play Kelsey as a one-off.
See, I think this one is, if you just want to get exposure to this game and hopefully there's a lot of scoring or it goes exactly your way, I think there's a pretty easy way to do it. I don't want to say easy, but it's Josh Allen with Dawson Knox, because Kincaid's not going to play, it looks like. And he's 35. That's where you save your money. And use Kareem Hunt on the other side. You can run all over the Bills.
Yeah, and it sounds like Pacheco's not going to be back this week, even though they activated him back.
It's probably like 2 weeks for Pacheco, I'm guessing.
Yeah, that leaves you 5,300 on a 3-man shell. I'd be fine with this because it's basically Josh Allen naked, but it's not because you're playing Knox, but you're playing the cheap tight end that is going to be fine to fit in there anyway. So yeah, I've got no problem with this. I think the other way to, again, that you could get away with it, I guess, would be if you played like Josh Allen and Kelsey, and just Kelsey does not need Mahomes. And that kind of flips what you just did here with Kareem Hunt and Knox. You're not playing the cheap tight end. You're playing Kelsey, and you're not playing Hunt at 6,700 anymore. It won't get you as much money as what you have right now, but it's just a way if you wanted to get a piece of this game. I do like the Allen Knox call that you put and just play those two.
And Kareem Hunt, 3% projected right now. On the other side, James Cook, 3%.
Yeah, Cook is probably fine. I mean, both these guys fit that.
Is that a way you could play this, Cook and Hunt?
Yeah, two enemy
like,
backs.
Hey, it's cold, it's rainy, and then we just see the exact game that we saw on Thursday night where it's like, hey, let's turn around and give the ball to the running backs 80 times in this game.
Yeah, I certainly think that could happen as well.
So let's do that. Let's throw that one in for later. Cook and Hunt, and it gets you off all of the chalk running backs. Now you can build up Jameis with Tillman and whoever you want.
Yeah, you'd be looking for some of the other stuff. Like I think at that point you're looking for
Russ, Pickens.
I think you're looking to make decisions based on those running backs. And so the first one you said made a lot of sense because you're probably not putting Kamara into this now. So if you get to the Jameis stack, it's going to be with MBS or something. So you do it that way. No one really cares as much about the Tua situation if you're not going to be on HN, but you could still fit HN into this lineup if you wanted and run that balance build. So
let's do that. I mean, I'm just going back to the shell. So we'll fill. I like this idea. We're going to fill in the shell for right now. Cook and Hunt. Just throw them back into that Jameis lineup that we built out and go back to it in a second. Green Bay and Chicago. I'm done trying to figure out the Green Bay offense. Like, I think it's Jacobs or nothing.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, we're past the point of games that I'm even consider. There's 11 games. You're not going to be able to play them all. Indy, New York, Minnesota, Tennessee, and Green Bay, Chicago.
Do you have, like, just very briefly, we'll do each of those games for, I mean, these feel like one-off games if
that's all it would be.
If that's going to be any part of this. So Green Bay, Chicago, is there a piece that you're interested from in this game?
Josh Jacobs.
Is that it?
Pretty much. Chicago's interesting, I guess, but they've just...
Chicago D.
Yeah, I guess that was mentioned as well, but like I just...
How much is Green Bay D?
Too much going on. Like there's a Green Bay D is
35. We didn't really talk about defenses at all, but Vikings D against Tennessee is just like salivating, waiting for it to happen.
3,700.
37?
Yeah.
It's probably too expensive in a week like this.
I think that there'll be...
Everyone is
the one if people go again, no one's really going up. I was going to say this, but if they were going up, I think that's where people would be more comfortable landing than the Green Bay spot.
I think either one is pretty good. I think just logically, the Vikings do make more sense.
Yeah,
because they're going against Will Levis
for sure. He's going to get opportunities, that's for sure.
So no Swift, no Adunze, no Cole Kmet, no anything like that. You just fade.
Just don't have much room for them. Like we talked about so much already. It's not even like not the spirit of what we talked about. I'm just saying when you have all those things we've mentioned. How you can't add them all in, and these are the ones that I think that's why we went to those games first. So yeah, it'd be Jacobs if he fits in there is my current thought process.
Jacobs is currently projected as the highest owned player from this game at 7%.
Yeah, no one's touching this game, which also doesn't people don't follow that as much too. Like the MBS last thing last week, people for example were freaking out about MBS. The highest he finished in the Million Maker was 5th. Outside of that, it was 12th. He wasn't even on the mill. Like when someone's 0.4% owned, it shouldn't really worry you. That's exciting that at least the guy that's breaking it, while you don't have him and you're tilting that, no one really has him. He was on 900 total lineups and a bunch of those are dead. You should be more worried if you don't have Bijan Robinson at 18% when he's dropping 30 because now you're dead to those lineups.
Tennessee and Minnesota, you never like playing Jefferson without the quarterback, right?
No, I do. He's one of the rare ones that I'll fit outside because he can get you 10 for 170 and 0. So sure, but I guess my take in this game would be Tennessee defense if Darnold's going to be seeing ghosts again.
Yeah, it's 17% pass. I'd rather play the Bears at 1/8 the ownership for $100 more.
For sure, yeah. You can see how it all shakes out as the week goes on. I think the reason, like Tennessee, for example, is just going to be similar to what was the team last week. There was a Chicago D.
That didn't work.
And it ended up being the opposite side, New England, right? New England was 2,400, Chicago was 3,000 or whatever, I think was the numbers. Same thing you're looking at this week, but Green Bay is more expensive on the opposite side. But Chicago could be the one to go to this week for sure. But that's like my interest in that game.
But like Ridley keeps producing.
Oh, Ridley, I guess, could be fine. One off.
At 62, Aaron Jones at 69. I just think he's buried amongst, and he's getting ownership.
So many running backs this week. Yeah, it would be the guy you mentioned, Calvin Ridley. Yeah.
Not Nick Westbrook-Ikine.
Didn't he score again last week after you said that?
I don't think that he did.
Maybe he didn't.
No,
last
Ridley
week.
scored twice.
Okay, that's what it was. Yeah, the late one to win the Millie Maker for someone. So yeah, the play there would be Ridley.
I have an underdog ticket from like preseason that really needs Will Levis to throw for like 3,400 yards this year because it has like Darnold over passing yards, and he's going to smash it by like 1,000 yards. Mooney has already hit his over.
Oh, huge
for the season. And just like they're all like lining up, they're almost all there except for Levis. It's like he's just not gonna even come. He throws like 100 yards a game.
You need Ridley to carry him.
And you need Ridley to like catch a few bubble screens for 90 yards and pile up the yardage that way.
Do it that way, yeah. That is the play that I would be interested in here, though.
Indy and the Jets.
I guess that one I would say out of the three that we just talked about, I would have the most interest because I think there is still definite opportunity for both running backs.
I'm gonna say Jonathan Taylor. Has to fall in a dead zone here.
Yeah, and I like him with the D. I know you don't have to do that, but that's one that I do like because I think the D is 2,600. It's a little bit below, a little bit above the Chicago and Tennessee's. And it would be the thing that makes the most sense is they put him in the position here and it's going up against Rodgers. You could also just play like Jonathan Taylor and your one receiver or something like that.
Or don't use Kamara in a one-off lineup. Use Jonathan Taylor and pay up for a better defense or something.
I guess the other thing that warrants a little bit of conversation is, Anthony Richardson, 5,300. That may actually be one. So I was passing on those other two games for sure because I feel that way. This one, I guess, of those last three is the one I would have some interest in. Do you think you could play like Richardson, Adonai Mitchell, and somebody else, or what do you think?
I mean, I never want to play Adonai Mitchell. So I'm not doing that. I'd rather play, I've been very firm on it. I'd just much rather play Alec Pierce. Alec Pierce is like MVS.
I feel like he's Flacco's boy, though.
He did it with Anthony Richardson too. He was better with Richardson than he was
he?
With Flacco. Like,
I don't know.
Now I have to go take a look at Alec Pierce instead of talking out of my ass.
I thought he was a project of
Let's see. Week 1. Yeah, 3 for 125 against. I can't remember if the Jacksonville game was Flacco or not, but he caught touchdowns the first 2 weeks from Richardson.
Yeah, okay. So maybe.
I mean, he just
5,400. Wow.
Yeah, he's a bit expensive. When he's more than Juwan Jennings, that's not good.
Yeah.
But again, he fits that same mold as MVS is. Usually when they do use him, they target him down the field.
Be like an 80-yard touchdown and whatever else you get.
Like 80 Mitchell's like, here, try to catch this 6-yard pass, and half the time he does.
Who's that guy, man? Somebody. Who were we making fun of? Someone just catches the ball and falls on top of it every time for 8 for 41 or something like that. It was who was on the cheat? Juju? No.
I mean, Zach Ertz does that.
Zach Ertz definitely does it. We saw it last night, and then they forced the revenge game touchdown in for him at the end, and the 2-point conversion. I forget who it is now, but yeah, people just catch the ball for 5 yards and fall on it. That's kind of what you could see more out of Mitchell, but he's got opportunity. The Pierce one, he's just too expensive.
Taylor and Hall, I guess, would be the two. You could always play Garrett Wilson, but shaky ground.
I could play Taylor and Wilson. I don't think you need Rodgers for Wilson.
No.
Right? You can get him there on the PPR points alone. But yeah, this is this going to be the stupid week where Aaron Rodgers finally does connect with Adams for like 2 touchdowns or something?
I didn't triple stack him up this week, so probably.
It's on my mind. We'll see. I've been trying to make it work, but how much is Adams this week?
Adams is
7,200.
Yeah, 72. Wilson is 71. How is Adams more expensive than Wilson?
If you go Rodgers, Jonathan.
And also, Adams hasn't practiced this week either.
I know. It's 5K on a 3-man shell, though.
Like just that triple?
Just that triple. It's Adams has to score 2 touchdowns to make Rodgers valuable just naturally from
Wilson
everything else.
Needs to have his like 8 for 125.
The triple stack, I might just be done with. I think it's like one or the other is going to get there. I'd probably just do it with Adams because it's going to be touchdowns that get there for him. And so to me, that would be like Rodgers finally connects with him for 2 touchdowns. Somebody else that you just don't need, like a Ruckert or something. You just don't need that because you're trying to figure out too many things. But you get Jonathan Taylor in there on the other side and call it a day.
You could throw Conklin at 32 if you really wanted to save money.
Yeah, if you needed it, that's how I would do it. That's where I would put him in because it would work. But 5,300 on a 3-man stack, it's very similar to the first stack we did today.
Well, let's go in on that stack, revert, and try to fill out these lineups. So Geno, Jennings, Metcalf, JSN. 5,200 remaining. Where do we go from here?
Geno, Jennings, Metcalf, JSN. Turn everything else on.
Instead of using McCaffrey, Kamara, I mean, Henry's coming at like 2%, but instead of using Kamara and McCaffrey, I am fine using like some combination of Bijan, Kyron, Jonathan Taylor. Like, I like those guys as much as A-Chain. I know he's a bit cheaper, but if I'm not using the super expensive guy and A-Chain's not my second guy in, then it's all the same amount of money.
Well, who's the chalk? Nobody here is chalk right now except Geno. Right? So who's the chalk that we were okay fitting in here? Like, do you want Achan and just see where we go from there? Maybe like Achan Taylor or something?
Yeah, we could try that out.
Does that fit?
I mean, that Cook Hunt thing, I mean, we tried that in that Jameis lineup just to...
Yeah, let's try that actually, because you had that left.
Well, we did that with a different one already.
Okay,
I was actually thinking what we can do here. Well, we'll see what we end up with at tight end. I want to throw Nick Chubb into this lineup.
Okay, 6K.
So Nick Chubb and maybe even Derrick Henry.
Too much.
Too much for, I mean,
stretching too much. I'm saying you have nobody in here that's everyone that's popular is popular for good reason. We have none of them in here.
All right, then
yet.
I want to play Bijan.
Okay, Bijan it is.
So,
I would see like, can you fit Bijan and Achan and not quite? No.
Well, if you go with, you really like Achan this week, huh?
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying your lineup has to tell a story. Like this is we're just going all over the board.
I mean, you can do this. You can do the cheap D.
Yeah.
And Davis Allen that fits with Achan actually.
Do you like Chicago again?
Yeah, I like Chicago more than Tennessee.
And then Allen.
And then Davis Allen does work in that spot.
Yeah, like I think you can get away with this. So that projects 3 points off your original optimal with Geno and all the other stuff, the randoms. This projects 3 points off, and you have Chubb instead of the Winston stuff, and also on the opposite side of Kamara. You have the Atlanta game in there with a piece through Bijan. And then you've got your Allen, Achan, Chicago D. Like, it's fine, and there's not much chalk in here. Probably Allen,
Achan,
and then maybe Jennings and Smith get a bit of a boost.
And Bijan's not going to be unowned.
True. Yeah, he'll get some for sure, but I think he's getting left out of that first trio that we talked about.
The other way that you could spin this is not use Achan, pay down somewhere, or not use Bijan and use Achan as your lead running back. And then you could upgrade your defense and tight end to like real people if you wanted to.
Well, what happens if you leave Achan instead of Bijan and go to your Hunter Henry we had originally?
That's 3,900, so I don't know if that's actually going to work.
You might have to stay Chicago D, and then you'd have like 6,500 left.
I'm fine with staying Chicago D. It's
David Montgomery would fit in.
Oh, really?
It projects the exact same, and we switched it to Hunter Henry, David Montgomery instead of Allen and Bijan. Which would you prefer of the 2v2?
65 with the flex. It's a tough spot. Like, this is a real dead. This feels like a real dead range.
I would have no problem though, because David Montgomery's a piece of that game. I know we're going to pass stack it later, but it's like, man, if you're landing on David Montgomery, I will never feel bad about plugging him in. It's certainly a great spot. He could get you 2 or 3 touchdowns on the ground just because.
Well, let me ask you this: Montgomery at 65 versus the guys who always touch the ball. Your Kamara's, your Bijans, Achan at this point, Jonathan Taylor, that level of running back. What is the opportunity cost of David Montgomery to them, knowing that Montgomery is very rarely going to touch the ball 20 times and probably needs to score 2-3 touchdowns to keep up with them based on the limited amount of touches that he gets?
That conversation in a broad standpoint, if you're asking it as like a real question, is obvious to what you said. And I know where you're going with it. And that's the whole point, that if everyone is trying to understand it, it's like, yes, you're not playing him because those other running backs are that much better. We're looking at a specific lineup, as is everybody else, building a single entry, having to make that decision with what's in front of them. If you are building Geno, Metcalf, JSN, Jennings, and you're using Chubb opposite Kamara, you're not putting Kamara in there. It's literally comes down to the 2v2. Chicago's almost the cheapest D you can play and feel fine with. So it landed on, do you want to play Davis Allen and Bijan, or do you want to play Hunter Henry and David Montgomery?
Okay, I have another 2v2 for you.
What is it?
Instead of Hunter Henry, Dawson Knox at 35, and now we have 6,900 for a flex, which I think gets you to a different level of running back. You could have Aaron Jones, at that price. You could have James Cook at that price.
I don't want any of those guys over David Montgomery this week as a 14-point favorite at home. He can fall in the box twice, and they might not even fall in the box at all.
More than someone like, I know, well, we don't have Bijan in this anymore. More than someone like Drake London?
Yeah,
Kareem Hunt?
I would, yeah. So I guess I'm higher on Montgomery or just that Detroit offense as a whole. Like, again, when I'm looking at a lineup like this where I can kind of do whatever I want, I'm looking at it from a perspective of I think it's awesome that we land on Montgomery and I get a real tight end in Hunter Henry, who I feel is in a better spot than a lot of the other guys that were just they're injury fill-ins, right? That may, like you said, Davis Allen. Does he get me Bijan? Yeah. Now, do I like Bijan this week? Certainly. I think even at the same projection, the other side is better. I want Henry and Montgomery because I think Montgomery could outscore Bijan and Allen combined on weeks like this, possibly.
There's one other move we can do here.
What's that?
I mean, you really like David Montgomery, so
In this lineup, that's what I was trying to frame up to you.
Yeah, but what you can do is you can take Jennings down to Ricky Bullets and then upgrade. So get Ricky or so fine at 49. And then you can free up Henry to Knox again, and then all of a sudden you have 7,300, which gets you Gibbs instead. Or you could play Puka or Adams or Josh Jacobs or something. But it gets you Gibbs instead of Montgomery, who I do feel like has higher upside.
Yeah, but you just buried it probably with Pearsall.
Maybe.
That's what I mean. Like that's how I look at it. Again, the thing about the Detroit stuff is just that's why I said I feel great about landing there. Is not people think it's about picks and plays. I don't give shit about any of these Lions. I just know the Lions are going to smash and score points. So when I'm building it and landing it there, I'm checking the 2v2s. I want Jennings and Montgomery over Pearsall Gibbs. Others might not. That's what I would want. So that's a good exercise. But you will have to make the ultimate decision in the end. I don't think there's that much difference that you're getting going either way. What I was going to consider is try and keep Jennings in there was to drop DK Metcalf down and either go to another cheap wide receiver and just run a single stack with Jackson Smith and Jigba, or go to Lockett and just hope that they lock down DK and you use those guys.
How is JSN done when DK plays? I feel like it's not very good.
I don't have the exact numbers up in front of me to know. But
He had the 1 week against New England, week 2, and he had against the Rams before the bye, went off without DK around. So he's had one good game this year.
I'm adding a new thing to my reputation, and it's the sample size thing that I just need people to understand. And that for sure, when they're watching me, I don't care. Like the sample size is always way too small.
Sure,
for
but
what people are saying. Like he's bad when DK's in. No, you're telling me DK Metcalf being on the field could be bad for JSN. Well, he was though the last 7 games they played. Okay, well let's play a bunch of games and see how it goes.
Well,
over
I
time.
mean, if you're going to point to something like, hey, it's a great slot matchup for JSN. I mean, that's also a small sample going against the San Francisco offense, not even incorporating who the slot receivers were on the other team. Maybe they played great slot receivers. Maybe they played bad ones. All I'm looking at is that DK, when he's on the field, I mean, the last game he got hurt in, he still had 7 targets, 11, 12, 7.
Yeah.
He is the primary option. It's him and Kenneth Walker, and then it's everyone else. So I worry at the same price that we're playing the worst guy.
It is possible, but that's, again, why you build your lineups out and figure out what you're doing. It's no different than the Pearsall Jennings thing. It was literally just last week. We would have liked both, and Pearsall ends up having a great game. And so, and you would have saved the money, and you would have got that.
But you're not saving money in this. They're the same price.
On these two.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I like the matchup spot better for JSN. But like I said, if I'm in a Geno lineup and I'm picking one, I always prefer Metcalf because Metcalf is a guy I think is more of, like I said, a Jamar Chase style where he's going to get you 2 touchdowns and he's the guy you need. But if we were doing the shell, it was a double stack. And I was just saying, I prefer in that it's JSN can still get me there. It can be the exact situation that we saw. What was the week when DK was out and now DK can become JSN and JSN can become Lockett? That week, there was still stacks that got there with Geno, JSN with 40. And even though Lockett only got 15 that week, he was still in plenty of those stacks because you needed Geno and JSN. And he was just a product of being in there. I think that could be what you see again this week.
Okay. So let's enter that one.
Yeah, I like it. And a good exercise to figure out the 2v2s. But like if you start to the first one we went back to, Davis Allen could be a 0. And even if Bijan gets you 25,
yeah, it's still 25.
Like, it's 25. I still am looking at like, what if Montgomery only gets me 15 to 20, but now I like Henry to be able to get me the 10 plus, and I still see floor and ceiling with that combo more.
So let's see if we can jam in McCaffrey with this Lamar team. So Lamar, Bateman, Pickens is what we landed on as a skinny stack for this lineup. So we can throw in McCaffrey.
Lamar, Bateman, Pickens, okay.
I liked your Jonathan Taylor with the Colts. Let's try that one out with this one, see if it works. So 2,600 and 7,600. We're now down to 39 after that defense. We do need another cheap tight end. And I honestly don't think there's much of a difference between Hunter Henry and Dawson Knox.
I'm fine with that too. Yeah, if we land, let's try Knox.
No, let's try Henry. But if we need the pay down, we have $400 there. And we have $400 with his defense too, if we really need it.
Let me see here if I put in the Indy D. So what do you have left for money right now? I think we're on the same 4,000.
Yeah, 4,000. So the cheap tight ends this week: Henry's 39, Jonnu is 38, who never seems to score a touchdown, so that's a problem.
Could you play
Knox, AJ Barner, who people seem to like? If Fant ends up being out, that's not for me. Juwan Johnson at 34 against Cleveland is just a piece of that game.
What if you do this instead of punting?
Conklin would be another one.
What if you take out McCaffrey and play Chubb and then use Jennings? So you still have a San Francisco piece at 53. You're not on the Cleveland-New Orleans game yet, so why not put in Chubb again like we just had? And you pick up your San Francisco piece through Jennings. You go back to the Chubb call on the opposite side in that game, and now we have 5,000 left at the flex with a potential move of what? We've got...
I don't have 5,000.
You should.
Oh, I had Jonathan Taylor in the Colts in.
I kept him in. So I have Lamar, Bateman, Pickens.
Yeah.
I have Jonathan Taylor and the Colts.
Chubb and Jennings.
And then I put Hunter Henry in.
Oh, you put Hunter Henry.
And I was saying, but that was to your original point. We have $400 there if we think we want it for Dawson Knox, and we have another $200 because we can just play Chicago D. So we have $600. So you can look anywhere from $500 to $5,600 here for what you think you're missing and what would make sense.
I don't know if we're missing anything. The best play of all these guys, I mean, you might be able to go double tight end. No, actually, you don't even need to do that. Instead of using Jennings, I mean, I guess that was the part of the San Francisco game that we were using. I guess if we're playing Nick Chubb, you could play MVS as the other guy on the other side.
Yeah, you could do that and just leave San Francisco out of it. Yeah,
and just say, hey, that game gets...
Or it just gets spread out a lot. Yeah. Like it could just be that sort of
no
thing.
one guy dominates. So Marquez Valdez-Scantling at 45. Then you have 59 for a flex. I don't know if that actually gets us anything.
But we could have 59 to 6,500.
It basically lands us on David Montgomery again.
Yeah, unless, I mean, now is a spot where you could start looking at some other stuff just in case, right? You got more options.
Jameson Williams is really Brock Bowers, Jameson Williams. With the one that we had just run, it probably would have landed on Jacoby Myers, which I actually didn't mind. Like, that's not like a run back, a stack, or anything. Just objectively, I like him in this game.
Hey, he's fine as a one-off, too, because he's just that type of guy that's going to rack him up.
Let's do that. Let's get MVS back up to Jennings.
MVS back to Jennings.
And then go Jacoby Myers at 56. Then you take Colts down to Bears. And Henry down to Knox.
And that's the exact, yep.
Yeah, and that gives us the exact.
And see, like this has, to me, this is what I'm saying. It's, it doesn't fully correlate everywhere, but it started from a shell. This is a Lamar lineup, but it's Chubb, Taylor, Jennings, Knox is in a good spot. It's, Myers is in a good spot. You're getting a lineup that's a little bit more balanced, but can still make sense. And you didn't really go too far off the board. It's not crazy for what you set up here.
How much is M. Jennings? There is one player in that Kansas City game that we didn't talk about. The cheap player is Juju, who's back.
You like him?
He's 45. I don't know, but he's $4,500.
You want him or MVS for the home run?
I think I'd rather have MVS for the home run. And especially in this lineup. But if we are playing either Knox or James Cook, or maybe even when we get back to that Bills lineup that we had like to fill in, like if we're just going to fill in a cheap guy, we might as well fill in a cheap guy from that game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's
so this side
a tricky one to get right. That's probably goes back to the same Mahomes conversation. Now it's hard to pick out who the guys are.
100%.
Everyone liked Hopkins last week. It wasn't horribly. I think he dropped a touchdown to her. He missed him on one. It was like that. There was like that was another thing. So I don't know. It's really just tough to figure that side out. So I like him as one-offs, and Juju could fit that. But maybe if you land there and it makes sense for the lineup.
This lineup is Russ, Mike Williams, and Freiermuth with Rashad Bateman.
I don't know why I'm excited to build this one, though. It's just Russ.
Well, it gives us the most leftover money of any of the lineup so far, $6,200.
So it was Russ, Bateman, Williams, Freiermuth, right?
Yeah.
And we talked about this where it's like if they just do their job in the sense of they think they should shut down Pickens and make Russ cook with somebody else, and then he kind of gets an $8,300 combo pack here with Mike Will and Freiermuth, and he can just catch him over the middle. We said that let's try and fit in those big three with this because no one's running this. So we said what does it look like? And we can make
McCaffrey, Kamara, A-Chain?
Yeah. And now put your Chicago D just to give us an idea. It gives us 5,100.
Which I think is either Tillman or Judy, isn't it?
I thought it was Tillman. That'd be perfect.
I think Tillman might be 53. He is.
Is he?
Yeah. We're $200 short of what we need here.
And it's stupid because even if we went $100 down to like the Tennessee D, it doesn't work.
No.
Who's the running back that we could swap?
I was going to say, we could go, instead of using Kamara, we could just take him down to Bijan.
Ooh, I got a crazy one. I'm going to build this because I want it. If you want to game stack this, you can change, get rid of your San Francisco like we just did, and you move Jawan Jennings to the final wide receiver spot, and it moves your CMC down to Derrick Henry. And you got the 5-man game stack with the leverage upside. You still keep everybody else, and you got your San Francisco piece. Again, it's not as good as CMC, but you have the $200 pivot to move to the other guy in this game. And this could go this way. Like Henry scores early, Russ fights back, Bateman starts getting some catches. You get a little back and forth to the 48 total. Again, if this game does underwhelm, like I said it could earlier, this lineup's dead anyway.
This is not going to be my single entry lineup.
No, but it's a way that you could really leverage up the field. You still have Achane, Kamara, Chicago D, Jennings, who might get a little steam, but you're on the non-popular plays outside of that for the most part.
I got to look at this fantasy scoring for Kamara. He had the 30-point game 2 weeks ago against Carolina, and he had the 47-point game in week 2 against Dallas. Other than that, he's been
That's the thing about him.
But he just doesn't score enough touchdowns.
Okay, this is the other thing. Take Kamara out.
I was going to say, can we take Kamara out for Bijan?
Well, you could take him out and Chicago and just play CMC and the Titans. You talked about Tennessee versus Mini, and you're not on any of them. You would get CMC in there, and then you could also swap to Tillman instead of San Francisco if you don't want 2 San Francisco pieces.
Let's see, Titans, Seahawks, Titans, or Jags? I think I like Titans.
I like the Titans, yeah. Would you want Jennings and CMC, though?
No. I mean, we can switch that out for Tillman, like no problem. Like
That's what I would do, yeah. Probably just do that.
Or just see who else is around there, just checking it out. Now, Ricky Bullets, Deontay Johnson, and there seems to be a pretty decisive drop-off.
How many people will have Derrick Henry and CMC in the same lineup, playing all these stud running backs, but not those two together? They're picking between them. We got them both. The overstack of that game, a piece of that with Tillman, Tennessee D, and Achane still gets in there. That's pretty nice.
Could we? I mean, you really love Achane, and I know the projections like him too. I happen to like Bijan a lot more.
I'd be subbing Bijan for CMC though.
Yeah, but could you take Achane up to, like, if we're punting off this like Tillman spot anyway, like that could be anyone kind of thing. Could you go up to Bijan and turn Tillman into either Juju or MVS?
I wouldn't, but you could.
I'd rather do that. It sounds like way more fun.
I got a better lineup anyway. Yeah, that's what you like, but I think you should do what you like.
And then I don't have to play Titans D. I can play anywhere up to Colts D again.
So I kept Achane.
Yeah.
And
I changed McCaffrey.
And I changed McCaffrey to Bijan. And I was actually able to go to Chicago D and get Myers across from Achane. Like I have no holes in this really. And I don't know. Can I still get back to him if I wanted? Oh, wow. I can actually still get back to Kamara if we don't want to have the overstack of the game.
I think I like this with Derrick Henry.
Yeah, for sure. That's how I have it. I'm just saying, yeah. So you get the Wilson, Russ Wilson, Mike Williams, Pat Freiermuth. You get Henry and Bateman on the other side. The secondary stack of Achane and Myers. And then you got
Jennings back in this too?
No, I went Myers over Jennings. No San Francisco piece, but we also doubled down on that because we went Bijan over CMC.
Oh, you kept Achane in this?
Yeah, I want that secondary stack, Achane and Myers. And then I got Bijan over CMC, and I still got to go up to Chicago D and have $100 left over. So you could go off Henry to Kamara if you wanted. But I like the Henry.
I actually like this more.
It projects better.
I can see that.
But it's, again, Achane has a good projection, but that's in this lineup, even if Russ gets steamed, the only person I've got right now over 10% in this lineup is Achane, but Bijan and Myers are on the cusp, and they probably get some steam, but you have like nobody over 20. You're not playing with fire here. Like you have tons of plays that are fully leveraged, and you're playing a pretty good projection lineup.
So what I figured out going through all this stuff, this is what I meant to say earlier, is that no one is playing Debo. So expect 3 touchdowns from Debo.
They liked him last week.
So they don't like him this week. I mean, it's just very hard to fit him in based on his price point right now.
Well, it's because, again, we're sticking with the theme of these expensive running
We are,
backs.
but do you not think that's going to be the common way to do everything?
Oh, they are for sure, yeah. Like, that's why I said Chubb, when you go down to 6,900 and below, you already mentioned Aaron Jones as a possibility at 69, but just talking 6,900 and below, if you do try and flip the builds with even the same shells that we're on, who are the guys you like down here? You mentioned Kareem Hunt. I mentioned Montgomery. You mentioned, and we both like Chubb. Is there other guys down here that you're really considering? Because that's where it gets tricky. You said kind of Warren, and we'll see how that goes. But honestly, after that, it's like nobody, right?
Yeah, Warren at 53 would be...
Oh, Estime maybe gets steamed because of that if people do go to this
That's
range?
the thing. If people need to find the money, like I would rather play the MVSs or Jujus of the world at that price point. But if people need to fill in a running back slot because of how they've built out their lineup, Estime gets through the roof. I just have no faith that he's going to get 10 touches.
Right. And I don't think as many do either. Again, he's showing a little bit of steam right now, but we'll see if that actually holds up. But right now, these builds are the ones that make sense because even though it's high variance and a guy like MBS at wide receiver, it's home run high variance. Like it's very good. If he does have one of those games again, it could just be 2 or 3 catches as we saw last week and he can blow up versus Estime getting 10 touches. What does that actually equate to even with boosting things? You go check it out. Like it's not going to show much.
All right. So let's move on to this lineup. It is the Detroit Smash lineup.
This is actually better than what we just had. Let's go.
Goff, Gibbs, Amon-Ra, and Jameson are in here right now. And we have 4,500 left per player.
And we got Gibbs in it, right? Too?
And we have Gibbs in this one
okay,
already.
so making sure we're on that version.
So this one feels like a Chubb lineup. Chubb MVS to save some money.
I like it. Also, there's kind of a factor here where you're playing Chubb over Montgomery in that range, and it's because you have Gibbs on the other side, so I kind of like that too. All right.
Then we'll throw in our defense. We'll go, I mean, it could be Bears, could be...
Let's stick with Chicago, and if we need money, I like that call.
All right, so Bears. Now we have 49. If you go...
Do you want to stick with your Knox or something?
If we go Knox, that gives us 6,300. So let's just see what 63 gives us. 63 gives us ETN, Shakir, Kelsey.
Knox Kelsey.
Let's
try that.
That's
and what's that leave?
Enough money.
MVS?
With MVS, yeah.
There you go. So bad projection.
I'm shocker.
But
a Detroit Super Smash?
It just not giving them enough credit, I don't think, for putting up as many points. But it is baked in, so I don't know. It's tough. It's just because it spreads out, I guess. I mean, we have them all, but there's just so many other guys. Like Gibbs is not going to project close to HN on paper because he's in a split.
But we know that that's probably...
We're building for something
based
different.
on how they have scored this season. That's probably a coin flip of who scores more.
Can I just say something that came to my mind? One that we can use elsewhere. I like the one you had earlier was Hunt versus Cook.
Mm-hmm.
I think a really interesting one is Chubb and Gibbs. Not even in this like this lineup, yes, but just elsewhere because it's the flip of Kamara over to Chubb
and HN onto Gibbs.
It's a very common setup, but you pick up money in this as well. But it also covers off like if you're not on Winston's side. Like this is a good little combo pack that you can use in a lot of places.
All right, let's get that one in there. We're on to this one. So we've already filled in the running backs for this one.
Okay.
Jameis Winston with Judy Njoku and Marcus Valdes-Scantling, and Cook and Hunt are the 2 running backs going against each other in that Buffalo and Kansas City game. That leaves us 5,200 for a wide receiver, a flex, and a defense.
So we had Valdes-Scantling, and then it's the one we did both those backs against each other?
Yeah.
Hunt, Cook, right?
So you could probably go expensive running back, mid-tier wide receiver, and then D.
Yeah, so what game do you want to just plug Chicago in for the sake of it and just see what that looks like?
I was actually going to say, let's do Achane and Myers and see what it gives us.
Or that, yeah. I was going to say, like, where are we missing that we can just plug in? And that could be it.
Achane, Myers gives us...
I thought we had a $2,900
$2,900 defense is...
It was Denver, no Estime. Or you can just play the Jets against Phony Tony.
Jets against Phony Tony. Or Falcons against... There's a lot of options here, I think.
This lineup projects about 10 off. So it's 10 points better than the last, 10 points off the optimal. But
could you, instead of using Myers and Achane, is there a cheaper receiver that you could potentially go to and play McCaffrey in this lineup?
Let's just try McCaffrey for a second.
So McCaffrey, you need and play Bears. Oh yeah, this works out easy. You play like Juju or something.
Let's see. Maybe even better. 50. Oh, you got 5K flat, right?
5K for a receiver. And there's no one really there?
Yeah, it's tough.
Like it's Ricky Bullets.
Ricky Bullets, another San Francisco piece.
DeMario Douglas.
It's kind of an ugly range, right? Like
Juju.
maybe, man, yeah, I don't know. Like, who's the guys below that you would like? And maybe-
I'm looking at that right now. Who are the super cheap guys? Like at this point, do you just throw Tim Patrick into it? Khalif Raymond?
Or can you get like Jennings at 53 and then drop down to your Bijan play?
Sure.
I think that's another way to do it without having to feel like you punted too much.
You can play that Vale guy. He's 39.
This leaves
I mean,
200.
the other thing you could do is you could do Juju at 45. I guess we already have Kareem Hunt, so that doesn't make any sense. So yeah, you could go Bijan.
Oh, you got 26. You could play the Indy D.
We could just go back to Achan, Myers, and
That was the lineup I would stick with.
Yeah.
I was definitely saying that. I'm saying if you were trying to flip it here, there's a few flips. But
you probably don't need to with this lineup. Although it seems to have a lot of chalky pieces in it, I just don't think this is a lineup anyone gets to.
I don't think there's as much chalk as we think. Like I said, we'll see. But when you're already on Hunt and Cook and Njoku and stuff like Judy over Tillman, even like all that, you can do whatever you want in this lineup. So that's why I like the Achan Myers one anyway, and it projects the best. You're not going to find a better projection.
Broncos, Jets, Falcons, Bills defense.
Who did I go with? Broncos. Oh, I went Jets.
You went Jets?
Yeah.
Jets at 28. There we go.
That's how I actually have popping a little bit anyway, and I just don't know if the ownership actually ends up getting there.
Bonex, Bijan, Sutton.
Yeah, that's a good start. You can kind of do whatever you want, I think, after that. So
we've already kind of built out that sort of lineup. The Hunt. Did I do it? Do I need to be beeped?
The Kareem Hunt.
Just sitting here misspeaking?
It makes sense. Kareem Hunt, you put it together.
Yeah, the Kareem Hunt Cook lineup is, watch out for those if you're trying to speak too fast. Do we need to build this one out, do you think?
No, it's just I was saying earlier when we talked about this, it's like that's the shell. Does it go anywhere for you, and can you turn it into something, and do you even like it? That's how that one would fit.
Yeah, like you have to pick out which stack that you want to put it with, and I think that we did that with the Jameis lineup. We used those two pieces and built it out that way, that it would need to be a cheaper stack. So I think we're good on this front.
Yeah, I think we covered a lot. And again, it's the good thing the way this new format works, I think, is that we start kind of where we want to go, and it's also what everybody's thinking. We play it along from there, and then it comes back the other way. And even building out these lineups, it's like, is this lineup really going to be better than the ones we've already built? Probably not. And so unless you feel that way, go your own way. But the other ones kind of fit the mold, so I'm good with it.
All right, what you guys got going on at Ship It this weekend? Live show on Sunday morning?
Live show Sunday morning, 9:45 a.m. Eastern. Got promo codes going up over there. You can use promo code Mayo, get yourself a discount.
That's a good one
as well. It's definitely the one to use when we're talking here. And then TambosTidbits.com. The official date is out for next Saturday, so there'll be something more with that. But go to TambosTidbits.com, get on the list, or follow me on X at ToeTag and Tambo. Get the details there.
You can follow me at the PME. I had a question for you. I got to get my wife a Christmas gift.
Mm-hmm.
What are you getting your wife?
Whatever she says she wants, and then she picks it out, and then I'll pay for it.
I mean, that's what she did for
I'm
me
not a
too.
thoughtful guy.
Listen, I want to get her something nice. She sent me a bunch of like art. She's like, art, good investment. She sent me like a $13,000 painting. I was like, this might be a bit much.
Too much. I also think
I'm going to need one of these lineups to win.
I need like some ideas, and then I kind of formulate the plan, and then she picks out like three. Let's say she wanted something like slippers. I'll just use a basic one, like small. Okay, I'm not just gonna say go buy the slippers you want. It's like, okay, what are the slippers you would consider? See them, take action. Maybe my daughter helps pick out because for mommy or something. But that's really it. Try and involve the kids a little bit, have some fun that way. But yeah, I'm not good at picking things out like that, and I'm working too much.
Yeah, I suppose that happens.
Pretty much how it works.
All right. RunTheSims.com for projections, the simulations, the optimizer, all the projections, the prop sniper code Mayo at Underdog to get yourself that deposit bonus of up to $1,000. And I've already given you out 2 plays so far. If you check out X, the weekend early 3-pack is already out, and I'll have more on the Saturday show when I run through the injuries, update the ownerships, and make all the Underdog plays for the week. All right. I'm Pat Mayo. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.
Mayo experience. Experience.